Oh, hello again, friends. I am here with you to talk today about density. Okay. And we are going to do a little experiment. I have a cup of plain room temperature water. Remember, room temperature means the temperature of the room. Okay. And I have four different objects. I have a cork. Okay. This is a cork. I have a wooden bead. I have a penny and I have a rubber stopper. Okay. So I'm going to stop for a second. I want you to make a prediction as to which of these items are going to sink and which of these items are going to float. All right. So let's see if your predictions are right. First up, we have our rubber stopper. Let's see what happens when we put it in the water. Oh, that dropped right to the bottom. Okay. Next up, we have our cork. The cork is floating. It's sitting there on top of the water. Next up, we have our wooden bead, also floating. And lastly, we have our penny. Penny went right to the bottom. So we have two objects that are floating and two objects that sunk to the bottom. So what does that mean? Well, if an object floats on water, meaning it's buoyant, it's one of your key vocabulary words, then that means the object is less dense than water. If the object sinks, like the penny and the rubber stopper, then the object is denser than water. So that brings me to the next part of our investigation for today. We're going to create a vial and stick assembly. Okay, so we have a vial here. We have a clothespin. We have a popsicle stick, and we have two rubber bands. Okay, and I'm going to quickly assemble. And I'm going to make it so that the rubber bands are holding the popsicle stick to the container. And we want to make sure they hold it in place. So we have two rubber bands to do that. One for more of the top and one for more of the bottom. Okay. And we're going to take our paper clip, our clothespin rather, and we're going to clip it to the top. So we have now created a vial and stick assembly. Now, we are going to take a cup of room temperature water. This is a bigger cup. Okay. And for the purpose of this investigation, we are going to see what happens with what is called our hot water challenge. Okay. So I'm going to then take this water that is right here. Okay. And I made it red for the sake of it being very, very warm. Okay. And it's a little bit too warm to the touch. So I'm going to use this paper, the towel here to pour my water in. I'm going to pour it all the way in here. And again, you can tell it is very, very hot. Now, the trick to this, my friends, okay, is that we have to take the vial and very, very carefully put it inside of this cup and observe what happens. Okay, but we don't want the water to mix, the red water to mix with the plain water. So I'm going to very carefully put it down in there, and you're going to observe what happens. Whoa, look at that, my friends. I hope you're able to see what's happening. The water, look at that. It's floating to the top, to the point where the bottom is still white or transparent, rather, and the top is completely turning red. Okay, so what happened to the hot water in the vial? It moved up and floated on top of the cooler water. Why do you think that it did that? Hot water is less dense than room temperature water. Okay, so now what happens if we try it with cold water? How cool does that look, friends? Look at that. That is super cool. There's a good vision for you right there. Really, really, really cool how that worked out. All right, so now we get to try it with cold water. And for the sake of making sure you realize that it is indeed cold water, there's ice cubes in there. And I've had this cold water sitting here for quite some time. We have a fresh cup of water. We are going to reassemble. Okay, we're going to reassemble our blue vial of water. So I'm cleaning this out. Okay, and I need to make sure that I take my stick that I had before and my rubber bands, reassemble it to create another vial and stick assembly here. Quickly making that there and then making it down here. Okay, and this time we're going to put the super cold water. Okay, I'm going to take my super cold water, which is blue. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing. Put this in the cold, nice cold blue water. And I'm going to very carefully put it inside of my cup of water. Let's see what happens with the cold water. All right, very carefully. Here we go. What's happening? What's happening there, my friends? You notice anything happening? I think I can clip it to the side there just to watch. Oh, just to watch. I don't see it floating to the top. I mean, it mixed in a little bit, but it definitely did not float to the top like it did with our red water. Okay, the cold water actually remains inside of the vial. The cold water, you can see it in there. It's still very, very dark there. It remained inside of the vial. There's a little tin of blue because, again, there was no cap on there. Okay, and so why do you think that it stayed in the vial? Because cold water is denser than room temperature water. And that, my friends, is our investigation for today. So, which water was denser than room temperature water? Go ahead and turn and talk. And which water was less dense than room temperature water? And which is denser, hot water or cold water? And why do you think so? All right. Now, when we look at our word bank and our vocabulary, materials sink in water if they are denser than water, and materials float in water if they are less dense than water. So, what did we figure out? Hot water is less dense than room temperature water because it floats on room temperature water. And how do you know? Cold water is denser than hot water because it sinks in room temperature water, while hot water floats on room temperature water. Okay? All right. And again, we take a look at that. The water is still sitting there in that, see that dark blue right there? Let me move my fingers. Yep, still sitting there, my friends. Whereas in the red cup, it rose to the top. How cool is that? Well, it is now time for you to move on to your observations and to work on your student sheet. So make sure that you share a picture of your work with your teacher, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.